evening and welcome to Thai PBS World Tonight. Right now, many countries around the world are easing restriction or reopen the country again. But Sweden is the country in Northern Europe which hasn't introduced any lockdown from the very beginning. So what can we learn from Sweden model? In the Thai PBS World Tonight, Khun Thep Chayong and me talk to Thai ambassador to Sweden.
It looks like the lockdown in Sweden has not been very strict compared to its neighbors, Norway, Finland, and Denmark. So what actually is it like under lockdown in Sweden? Is it not as harsh as it should be?
In fact, there is no lockdown in Sweden. There is no lockdown in Sweden because the government doesn't have authority to lock down the country. So, and the system here, I think the authorities feel that the pandemic needs a long-term approach. It's not going to go away in a short while. So they have been taking a long-term approach and trying to, of course, they have the same objectives as other countries. So they have the objectives to contain and control the spread of the virus and to ensure protection to the risk group, especially the elderly people and the migrants who maybe they do not know the Swedish language. And of course, they want to make sure that the health system can accommodate the number of patients. And so far, they have been quite effective because early on, they intended to transform an exhibition center into a field hospital to provide extra 600 beds for patients, but they didn't have to use that in Stockholm.
So does it mean that life as usual, Ambassador, in which people can go to cafe to beauty salon as usual? And what about social distancing and wearing masks? How do people protect themselves?
Okay, it's not life as usual, but maybe it's less strict than other countries because here people can go outdoor. Especially if you go to public parks, because sunshine is supposed to be good for you, for your health. And then if you go to restaurants, normally now you cannot go to bar or buffet, but you can be seated and you can be served. And then you can go for takeaway food. There's public gathering, a ban on public gathering of over than 50 persons. And graduation ceremonies, any social gathering, big events have been discouraged. And so I think it's not business as usual at all. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sweden has also advised against non-essential travel abroad. And also public health authorities encourage people in the country not to travel from here and there. So the number of travels have been decreasing. The statistics is over the Easter break in April, actually 96% drop in the number of travels. Yeah.
So mostly it's about making requests, but not order for people to comply with the request, unlike other countries.
Yeah, and in fact, the government doesn't have authority to declare state of emergency or lockdown. This is a very unique system. So the authority will be with the municipalities. If they want to quarantine people, they can put quarantine on people, but it's up to the regional health authorities to issue that. It's not at the central level.
Does it mean Swedish government has encouraged herd immunity? How do they describe the method to people?
The Swedish authorities have denied the use of herd immunity. They said it's not intention at all. But maybe the results of the long-term approach that they have been using actually helps to create the immunity among the people. The statistics that were just given is that over next week, about 1/3 of the population of Stockholm about 600,000 will probably be infected by the virus already, but 99% will not show the symptoms. So in effect, that might have created the immunity, even though the strategy that was used did not intend or they did not label it as herd immunity strategy.
Of course, Sweden has been in the news in the past few weeks and has been seen as a model in the fight against the coronavirus. And people attribute the success of Sweden to what they call the so-called consensus culture, in which people would be willingly comply with measures or directives from the government. So as far as you can see, you think people have been very cooperative in following the measures and directives issued by the government as far as social distancing is concerned?
I think if you ask the Swedish authorities or Swedish people, they would not claim that the Swedish model has been a success. They will say that, in fact, they take a long-term approach, and they will say that in dealing with this situation, it has to be contextual. So you cannot compare one country to another country. There's no ready-made recipe, so you cannot cut and paste, the solutions here to other places. And in fact, they have been saying that they have failed in terms of providing protection to the elderly population. But comparing to other countries, for me who have been here for only 2 months and a half, it's also amazing to see how they don't have to come up with legal measures, but still people know how to act and how to behave responsibly for the society. And you can see from the public transportation, for example, if you get on the train or the buses, people will keep social distance, physical distance. And on the bus, I take buses on weekends too. On the bus now, it's like you can go on buses free of charge, because they would try to distance you from the bus driver to make sure that the bus driver is actually safe and he's not going to be infected by the passengers, so we can get on the bus free. I'd like to stress that what Sweden may differ from other countries is that they address this as a long-term problem. They feel that for them it's no use to lock down for like 1 or 2 months, and it's already past that stage. For them, they say the peak for infection has already passed in April. No use to lock down anymore. Reproduction number for the infection is about 1%, so that means that one person can infect about one person, not more than that. So they feel there's no need for the lockdown, and they like to think of the balanced approach that take into consideration that people can stay on, their lives can go on. Even depression is something that is taken care of too. They say that depression is not going to end when the pandemic is not here. Once you get depressed, it's going to be with you for 5 years, 10 years, for the future. Education as well. One of the differences is that primary schools, kindergartens have been open all along. So they feel that education is important for long term. So they like to keep their children in schools, and so children can be educated. But universities and secondary schools, students have to stay home and study online. But primary school and kindergarten have been open all along.
That must be based on trust of people on the government, and interestingly, Swedish people behave responsibly for society. And that's all from Thai PBS World tonight.